Please be certain for Section 4 of Chapter 9 that you read pages 412 and 413. There's a history of civil rights law there that I would like you to view. I cannot do it justice without having a discussion about it, and I refuse to treat it summarily as I would have to in a 15-minute discussion here. Understand that in the end we end up with what I had previously referred to under the strict scrutiny test as these suspect classifications. And in the end, suspect classifications end up being race, gender, certain religious groups, and individuals who had previously been disenfranchised. Many organizations, in particular organizations of higher education, began an effort towards affirmative action in order to encourage previously disenfranchised groups to become enfranchised, to become empowered. And the affirmative action movement simply stated that, okay, if 10% of the population is a particular group and 1% of our student body is that group, then we're going to say that 10% of our enrollees need to be from that group. Or if half of the people are women and we have that number of women who are prepared to go into our medical school, then we admit that number of women into our medical school. There is a difficulty that arises, however, and that is what happens when an applicant who is not a previously disenfranchised person, read white male. What happens when a white male is not, has a better score, has, let's say on the MCAT test to get into medical school, has better grades, has a, frankly, just a flat out better resume, but affirmative action has put another student ahead of him. Let's say it is a black female, black woman is going to be allowed into the school instead. This is precisely the fight that comes about under Board of Regents v. Bakke. And in Board of Regents v. Bakke, we have an angry white dude who wants to go to law school, and he's mad because he doesn't get into the law school because of affirmative action. He attacks the fact that there are quotas, and he points out that he would have gotten in but for the quota system. In Board of Regents v. And the argument against this is that it's reverse discrimination. So if we're not allowed to discriminate against all of these previously suspect classifications, then why should we be able to discriminate? Why should we be allowed to disallow individuals who had been in another circumstance, mainly being a white man? Of course, the people who are shouting that the loudest are white men, and Mr. Bakke is, as I say, a white man. The court ends up agreeing with Mr. Bakke, and it says to the Board of Regents of California, race may not be the sole factor that decides whether somebody is allowed into your university or into one of your programs. And so what develops from that is a series of, many schools then have affirmative action with a point system. And so your point system may result in saying if you are African American, then you get an additional 10 points added to whatever overall score. And then we will admit all of these people in who are the top 100 of this group. That can be used to one's benefit, and it can be used to one's, unfortunately, one's downfall as well. At this point, for example, Harvard University uses whether one is a relative of a person who has gone to Harvard before in their point systems. So people who are getting extra points at Harvard are people who have parents or grandparents who are Harvard alumni, meaning that the vast majority of people who go to Harvard have relationships previously existent with Harvard. So in that instance, this affirmative action with the point systems falls apart. Anytime that race has been used as the primary item in the point system, the court has knocked it down. And in fact, as recently as the 1990s, a court decided that in the effort to integrate schools, using race as the only item to decide whether the school was being integrated properly was unacceptable, and essentially overturned Swan v. Charlotte Mecklenburg. So there is a swelling of effort to bring individuals who are in previously suspect categories into the fold and into enfranchisement in the American political landscape, and frankly the economic landscape, which is more important in many ways. And there is pushback coming from the group that traditionally has had power and had the benefits of the economy in that group. None of this should be a surprise to anyone. This would be true. Go to any country on planet Earth, find the group that has traditionally been the power group, and watch to see whether they are willing to willingly give up power to some other group. There is going to be a struggle every time. Now, does that make the struggle to enfranchise as many people as possible wrong? No, of course it doesn't make it wrong. It just is human nature, and you as members of the body politic, which you will soon be, need to go out into the world understanding that there are multiple perspectives available. We would have had this discussion in class in a very different way. I would have encouraged you to express your own viewpoints, and what you would have heard is a variety of viewpoints on these issues. And what is important in any democracy is the willingness to listen to other people when they express their viewpoints on something. Because whatever has built that viewpoint, it may not be in alignment with what your experience is, but you would do well to listen to why that person is expressing the viewpoint. They have a reason, and you had best at least understand what the reason is. You may not accept it as a valid reason, you may not accept the conclusion, and that allows you to make an argument with regard to it. But simply saying, this, I flatly refuse it, and I shan't listen to it, isn't working. It exists in the body politic today. Look around, look at the early reactions to COVID-19, look at the way many individuals responded to this, the current crisis, and you will see that not listening to other people and not trusting in what other people's experience sets are cause difficulties, particularly when a crisis arises. So go to your book, take a look at affirmative action and the set of cases that are provided on page 414. If you have questions, of course, post them in the discussion beneath this assignment, or feel free to post it in the stream on Google Classroom. I would like to continue this conversation with you. Sadly, if you don't come to my office hours, or if you don't respond on here, I'm not able to hear your viewpoint and not able to have the discussion with you. With that being said, thus ends Chapter 9. I will assign the study guide tomorrow, and at the end of the week this week, you will have a multiple choice test over Chapter 9.